Because I have a pretty good idea they'll be angry, very angry, and feel like they were disenfranchised.
Right, and so what I would say is you have to kind of dial it back and look at what's happening. If Cruz and Trump will have the most delegates by a mile, right? And so they're going to have a much more disproportionate say over the rules. They're also going to have relationships with these delegates going into the convention. It would be extraordinary if something as you described actually happened. I mean, the truth is the nominee is likely to be, and by a long shot, a person who's actually running for president. So that's number one. Paul Ryan's not interested. That's number two.
But that's not the point.
But you can't take away.
But you got to understand, there is Mitt Romney supports Kasich in Ohio, Rubio in Florida, and now he's endorsed Ted Cruz. And a lot of people think that the reason Kasich is staying in, and I believe this is partly true, is there is a hope to have a contested convention for the very purpose, you keep reading about it, to stop Donald Trump. Or I would even argue to stop Ted Cruz. Now, if you are a Cruz or Trump supporter, and you win, and you have the most delegates and won the most states, the most votes, and they take it away from you, the prescription for electing Hillary.
But Sean, you're describing a hypothetical that hasn't come true. But number
they're
two,
trying to do this.
I can't help it. Sean, I can't help you if you don't want to understand that you need a majority of the vote to be the nominee.
I understand it, but there's a whole group
of plurality of the people
Republicans pushing this.
Sean, I get it, but a plurality of the vote on the floor is not going to cause someone to be the nominee. The minority of delegates does not control who the nominee is going to be. It's like you saying, Reince, I like you tomorrow as long as it doesn't rain. Well, you have no control over whether it rains or not. It's either going to rain or it isn't. Either someone's going to have the majority of delegates or they're not.
All right.
So I'm not going to help someone get the majority, and I'm not going to hurt someone from. Sean, I understand your point. Your point is everyone's going to be mad if the person that's in the lead doesn't actually become the nominee. I hear you. I understand your point. All I'm saying to you is then it's up to those people. I guess it can in theory, but I think you're overplaying sort of what happens on the 7th or 8th or 9th ballot.
Wait a minute. I don't think I'm overplaying it when John Kasich is stating publicly he wants that to happen. Mitt Romney clearly has laid it out as a strategy. Hang on. John Boehner has said that he wants that to happen. And to be honest, I think I've read enough Stop Trump, Stop Cruz articles to last me a lifetime. Clearly there's a sentiment among some that lost, that this is the direction that the party needs to go to save the party, that they know better than the people that actually voted and caucused.
And they're not going to have any delegates on the floor, Sean.
All right.
I mean, Cruz and Trump and the other people running, and Kasich will have some delegates, but the candidates running are the ones that are going to have the delegates and the relationships on the floor that will ultimately control what happens. So I just think you need to be a little patient. Okay, take care, buddy.
Right. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You see, folks, let me tell you something. This is a path to a coup, to take the nomination out of Donald Trump. That's all it is. And the party cannot tolerate a man like Donald Trump because he don't take orders. He give orders. That's all it is. We don't need a Romney or a McCain that are a couple wimps, a stupid garbage that don't know nothing and don't care for the country. I don't care how many times he was a prisoner of war. I don't care anything. McCain don't have the balls to be the president of the United States in this moment, at this time. And let me tell you something. If you elected a Democrat, we are going to have ISIS policing our country. The terrorists are going to be telling us what to do. And, of course, Hillary Clinton is going to give speeches from the prison, from the penitentiary. And David, what's his name? The other old guy, what's his name? Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is going to give up everything you have to the poor and the undesirable and the illegals and the undocumented, because that's the way the communists work. You know, I have a neighbor that has a beautiful house. I wish I have his house. And he has the big sign of Bernie Sanders. I told him the other day, what are you going to have when somebody and your government like your house and they come over and take it, like they did with my house in Cuba? Well, not my house, my family house. They took it off. First, they ransacked it, took all the chandeliers and everything else. I got pictures to prove it. And then they took it and gave it to somebody that was with Fidel in the Sierra Maestra. That's what they do. That's what the communists do. They steal from you to give it to somebody that they want to pay political favors. It is time to wake up, people. Wake up. We are not going to allow anybody to take the presidential nomination from Donald Trump. So don't try anymore. I never seen any more division of a party like the Republican Party. I've been saying that since Charlie, what was the name of Charlie?
Angle.
No, Charlie.
Rangel.
No, the Congresswoman, Charlie Berkeley. Shirley Berkeley was running, and Kevin, I forgot the name of the guy again.
Wagner.
Ken Wagner was running against her, and Sue Louden took the one that lost the election, lost the nomination, took it with her to the
Convention.
The convention. Gee, thank you. It's bad. I'm pissed off because I can see that they are insulting our intelligence by trying to steal the nomination from Donald Trump. It is like that. It's not going to happen, people. It's going to be a civil war if does something like that happen. Well, at least that's the way I see it.
Well, if you're not going to tell us what you really think, anyone else like to say something?
I beg your pardon?
If you're not going to tell us what you really think, anyone else like to say something?
Yeah, and as soon as I finish, I'm going to introduce my guest.
And
I'm going to introduce,
thought you were...
You know, I'm very, very, very disappointed with the Republican Party for a long time. Yeah. But now
they're showing their true colors.
They're showing the true colors, you know. Yep. And Donald Trump need to forget about all the tricks. Forget about they using your wife. They're not using your wife anymore because she's out of the business for 20 years. So forget about it. Don't get in the trap, Donald Trump. Don't get in the Republican trap. They doing it. This is ridiculous that those two women now are going to start hitting each other for no reason. First of all, let me tell you, Ted Cruz's wife should have found another plastic surgery to fix her lips because they are awful. And look at Donald Trump's wife. Man, if I have a wife like that, I don't have to say anything else. You know, I'm the king. You know, but don't get in the trap, Donald Trump. That's all I gotta say as an open statement. And now I'm going to introduce my guest for today. Stan Barnes is running for the District 15 in the Assembly for this year. You're not running against Victoria Siemens?
No, I'm running against.
Shit.
I'm running
sorry
against
about
Elliot
that.
Anderson.
You see, if you were running against Victoria Siemens, I will give you free advertisement. Because I don't want her to win that. Oh no, she's running for the state senate. I'm sorry, she deserved a promotion after 5 months. After 5 months in the assembly, for the first time in her life, she has the opportunity to serve the people in her assembly seat. And now, after 5 months, she wanted to be a senator. She needed a promotion. Okay, so you're running District 15 against Elliot Anderson, right?
That is
Elliot
correct.
Anderson. Okay, and what makes you better than Elliot Anderson?
Well, there's a lot of things there. If I got a couple of minutes to explain.
Sure, you got 2 minutes.
Before Elliot was in the office, He started for Harry Reid. He did the Memorial Day address in 2007.
Well, he's a Democrat.
He's a Democrat, but he was for the Islamic State rebels. He said we need to get out of Iraq and stay out of the Civil War. And so nobody is more responsible for ISIS than Elliot Anderson, our current assemblyman. Now, why I'm better than him? My background is in accounting, finance, economics. We all know that the big problems here in Nevada are the problems of bankruptcies, foreclosures, 100 million people out of jobs.
And now you have to add the stealing of trust and the curse of law.
Oh, absolutely.
Now
And
you
this is
have-
the one thing I'm involved in right now, for
What,
example.
in trust?
Yes, I am I'm a volunteer for a nonprofit, and right now they are trying to steal the $5 billion in assets of that nonprofit.
$5 billion?
Yes, correct. And so we're trying to get people to show up at this courtroom, April the 8th, 1:30 p.m., courtroom number 5 before Judge Spracker. You can go and
Judge who?
Judge Spracker. It's
In Reno, you mean?
no, this is here in Las Vegas, 333 South Las Vegas Boulevard.
Oh, federal judge.
Yeah,
Okay.
federal judge. Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. It's got to be stopped. But I don't want to get into that. Let's talk about
No.
the people in our district and the
Right.
things that they need.
Right. You
And
live in
that's-
District 15,
I live in
right?
District 15, right there.
For how long?
I've lived there since 2007. So I've lived in the district. I ran against Elliott in 2010. Now, a number of things.
Did you move there to run against him?
No, I moved there because I married my wife, and she had a home in the district, and so I moved down there in 2007. I didn't run until 3 years later. All right.
Okay.
I ran against Dina Titus in the following campaign. I ran for U.S. Congress against Dina Titus. Got over 5,000 votes. The Republicans asked me to come over from being an independent and to run this year because they think that I can beat Elliott and get him out of there. And we need to get him out of here. This is a guy that even though he is a William Boyd Law School graduate, he was the
And a
sponsor.
veteran.
And a veteran, yes. But as I said, he did that stuff with the 100 anti-war demonstrations. He put that Nevadans for regime change in Iraq while he was on active military reserve duty,
Wow.
which is something that people should consider. But getting back to that, he was the sponsor of SB 303, and that was unconstitutional. A lawyer should know that Article 6, that treaties are part of the law of the land. And that was the treaty in 1946 that said the regulation of inter-American automotive traffic, that illegal aliens may not be given driver's licenses. But they did it anyway. And I have to also condemn our Republican governor for having signed that into law and allowing 220,000 illegal aliens to get driver privilege cards in violation of the U.S. Treaty on the Regulation of Inter-American Automotive Traffic.
But isn't it more important that they become Democratic voters?
Absolutely not.
That's more important than the law.
More
It's
importantly,
cynical.
they need to become Trump supporters because Trump is going to build that wall, and that's the only thing that's going to save this country. That's going to take care of your war on drugs. That's going to stop the drugs from coming over. We have a major problem. My neighbor and myself just got our air conditioners, $10,000 in air conditioners stolen on February the 9th. Metro thankfully came within 7 minutes, took care of the problem, but they were already destroyed. They were on their way back to Mexico. They said there was a major
did?
problem.
They did?
Yes.
It was illegal in Mexico?
It was illegal gangs. They're taking air conditioners from all over the valley, selling them in Mexico for $50 a piece, selling the copper here. It's a major crime wave problem that we have here. Every day, every couple of weeks, just look in the East Valley View.
But you
will
know, let
see
me tell you
lots of
something,
different
Stan.
crime.
You have to feel sorry for these people. They live in the shadow. They live in the shadow. They all have a job. They all have a bank account. They all drive in a $170,000 truck. They all have a driver's license. Why? You know, you should be sorry for these people that live in the shadow. They don't have anything else, but they got everything the American people don't have.
Rolando, I tell you who I'm sorry for. When I gave 2 interviews recently to the 2 largest newspapers in the world, both from Japan, 14 million subscribers, we're sitting there.
Las Vegas Tribune is the largest
Okay, but
newspaper.
anyway, we're sitting there, and I'm talking to them about the problems. How that of 8 houses on my street, 7 of them are in bank foreclosure right now. And while we're coming there, homeless people are coming up to the reporters from Japan asking for money. Okay, they see the problems. When you have at our local Boulevard Mall, we've got a 99-cent store and a Goodwill store, and our major stores are all going out of business there and everything. You see this problem. It's just a wave of nobody having jobs,
Yeah.
okay? Nobody has jobs. Nobody has any money. Go onto my website at www.stanvon.org. I've got picture after picture after picture of closed businesses. Food for Less has left our area. We have the Ace Hardware. I'm
No, but
telling
excuse
you.
me. No, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Let's be realistic, okay? Let's be realistic because I pride myself on having an organization that is very transparency, okay? The Food for Less didn't leave the area. They didn't go away. Smith bought it, okay?
Well,
And
Kroger,
everybody
Kroger
from
bought
Smith-
it.
They've
everybody
always
from
owned it.
there
Yeah,
went-
Kroger owns it.
Are the stores open?
Yeah,
No, they're closed. The stores are closed.
they move it to another store, and some of the stores have changed the name.
Yeah.
You know, it is a matter of the Mormons taking over the businesses in this town. It's
But it's
simple as
cost workers.
That's exactly
cost
right.
employment.
It's cost those
They're
those workers
condensing
jobs.
their stores in
But
this.
when you consolidate and you
Right.
take that and you say, okay, we're going to promote Smith's, which is more expensive than the
Right.
wholesale place where you bag your own groceries and you have cheaper food, it hurts the people in the district. I mean, just like up
Right.
in North Las Vegas, you don't have major chain food stores in West Las Vegas. Okay, people have to go 4 miles in either district.
Why? Because the black people don't want to support the store. They open a store over there on Martin Luther King, or I forgot the name of the store, and they had to close it because the black people don't go to buy people like that. Why do you think the Las Vegas Sentinel Voice had to close, the only black paper in the state of Nevada? Because the black people will not advertise with the. Why did I have to close La Verdad newspaper, the very first Spanish newspaper in this town? Because the Spanish people will not advertise in the Spanish newspaper. They don't do that. They don't support. No, they don't become American either. They just don't like people to criticize them. And if you're going to have a newspaper and you're not going to be able to criticize and stick up for what is right and what is true, then you might as well don't have a newspaper. And that's the reason why I've been saying every day, if the Democrats take over or Kasich take over, I will close the newspaper, Las Vegas Tribune, and I will give.
I'll buy it.
I will give Clark the radio station. I already gave it. He already bought it anyway. So it's not the point of that. The point is I don't want to go to prison, and I know then I cannot have a newspaper. Then I cannot express myself. I don't gonna do it. I'm not gonna have a newspaper just for the idea to have a newspaper. Just for the idea of having. Shut up, please. I don't want to have the idea of having a paper full of press releases. That's all it is.
But anyway, you can go to stanvon.org and there's lots of pictures. The Fresh and Easy's out of business. There's lots of restaurants, convenience stores, banks, the Bank of Las Vegas. I had to change banks 4 times in 1 year because each bank kept going out of business. So you can go in there and you can see all the pictures of all the
You
different
can go to
closed
Bank of
businesses.
America. They rip off everybody, but they allow to
But
do
I'm just
that.
saying four of my local banks there,
Yeah, I
all
know.
went out of business.
I
The
know.
pictures are there on the internet.
And people
So,
don't
on
see
the
those
website.
things. People
So-
don't want to see those things.
But anyway, that's, there's a lot of other issues that Elliott's voted for. He's put all his energy, he said, in his last little mail out on drone regulation.
Yeah.
I sat in front of Mariano's and La Bonita, and I interviewed people all day long, both places. And they said, well, I don't know, we weren't dodging any drones in the last 2 years. maybe he should have been working on helping jobs back and helping the people in the district.
Yeah,
So,
that's right. And
that's-
the same way
yeah.
with immigration reform. They do promise, but nothing happened. And I tell you one thing about this administration: they are the largest deportation administration in this history of this country. So that's one thing good I have to admit. Then is happening with.
But where are you getting those numbers from?
Yeah.
That they're the largest deport. That's a good number for Obama. So you know one thing: it's a phony number.
Well, you got a point in there.
Right.
Yeah, do you believe the unemployment numbers
Right.
that they
See,
put
every
out?
number that
I-
comes from
Yeah.
Obama is
Yeah.
phony.
I hate when you write.
Yeah, well.
I
Get
hate-
used to it.
No, I mean, we've got 42% of people who are not working that are of working age.
30% of the
Okay.
country's not working. That comes to a 4.9% in Obama math.
How does that
It
come
doesn't
out?
work.
Because they're using Common Core math, all right?
They're using something I'm not familiar with.
People are dropped out of the.
Crimes are
hunt
getting higher
for
and
a
higher.
job Are considered work.
They still want a job, or their unemployment runs out.
You
Now
wanna
they're
share your
considered
microphone with
not
Jerry?
unemployed anymore because the unemployment ran out.
Okay.
When you have a elected official like a Nancy Pelosi say that unemployment's great because for every dollar we spend, we get $1.79 back. She was misspeaking. What she meant, for every dollar they spend, they get 1.79 Democratic voters back, is what she was trying to say.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Stan, but you have somebody running in the Republican ticket too, right?
No, I am on the
Oh,
November
that's
ballot.
right. That's
I'm on
right.
the general.
Yeah, that's
I'm on
true.
the November
Well, you
ballot.
might sweep in on the Trump movement.
That's what I'm hoping. Yeah.
So what
Let's hope
happened?
so.
What happened if the other Republican then is running as a Democrat? I don't want to mention name because I
Right.
really don't think
It won't happen.
it's
That's what.
necessary.
Then
what happened if he wins?
It'll be a win-win for the people of the district.
What happened? What with him winning?
Well, I'm still saying I'm the better alternative, and that I'm more conservative. I'm gonna lower taxes. People talk about not increasing taxes. We need to lower the taxes.
Yeah, that's
So,
right. That's right.
But yeah, I have to say the Republican Party introduced me at Silverton before 2,500 people there. They've been getting me interviews, and so I'm grateful for what help that I am getting from the Republican Party, and we're gonna win. We're gonna win this time
That's good.
and make a change and try to help for the better for the people of this district.
Well,
You have-
many
suffering so
voters
much.
don't even know the difference between an assemblyman and a county.
Commissioner or city
Commissioner.
councilman.
That is Jerry Sakura speaking now, and he ran for Congress one time
In New Jersey and here in Nevada.
in both places.
After I was
Okay.
70 and retired.
Oh, okay. So that's another guy that care for Las Vegas, they care for Nevada, and care for the United States. He's retired.
I guess he
He,
speaks for everyone.
yeah. So,
Thank you.
and he's also writing a book now, and
75 is the new 45. Just ask my assistant.
who's your assistant?
Well, her name will go.
Your ex-wife?
No, it isn't.
Whatever happened to your wife, your ex-wife? It is ex-wife or still married to her?
Well, are you familiar with the concept of B&B? And that's not bed and board.
No, I'm not familiar.
Well, actually it is. It's bed and board. It's a nuptial agreement. You've heard of prenups, meaning you will divide the assets of the party, because I don't believe we're ever going to get, that we'll ever stay married.
Stan, let me ask you, getting a little bit out of the politics, are you still playing chess?
Yeah, I am still the WCF World Chess Champion.
And with respect to the late Walter Brown,
Yeah,
who had a
there's-
half-page obituary in the Los Angeles, in the New York Times.
Your spokesman is getting a little bit serious in his position as a spokesman.
And-
He wants to interrupt you, but he's always been that way. He interrupts everybody, so
I've learned to keep my
Stan
voice
used to
down.
be Is you still the champion?
Because
Yes, I am.
Yeah,
Walter
he's-
Brown.
he's a
has-
champion.
Walter Brown has introduced a brand new form of chess.
Jerry,
But he died.
Jerry, I hate,
Exactly. In
I
his
hate,
memory, we can
Jerry-
make chess.
Jerry, let me remind you something, Jerry.
Yes,
It is my radio show.
yes, it is.
Okay?
Why don't I sit over?
Yeah, that's a good boy. Good boy.
Anytime anyone has anything that.
This is my problem with him. He don't let anybody talk.
Do you realize
Always.
that
But no, this is a very
handicap
similar.
chess is going to be the next wave of
Getting back to chess, the same thing that the ranchers are dealing with, where the federal government is overstepping their authority. You're finding we're dealing right now with the billionaire hedge fund manager from Missouri, trying to steal all the state of Nevada trademarks that we have with our organization. And that's an issue that I'm bringing up right now. I was just going to show Rolando that they opened up their organization in 2011, and they've spent lots of money in federal court trying to take our trademarks, and we've been working with lawyers on contingency. We're through our fifth law firm, but I'm just showing Rolando right now a magazine from 1989. This is over 22 years before they opened up their organization, and we were using our trademark way back then. Okay, so they want to wink away facts, and they want to try to take all the, take everything that we've got. And so we're working right now with the state to try to use the state's sovereign immunity to protect the World Series of Chess, like the World Series of Poker, and to protect a lot of the trademarks that we have that they're trying to take away from Las Vegas and move over to Missouri. So that's just
let's go back to politics.
But getting back to politics.
Let's go back to politics. Can you give us a little? I know it's not your district. I know you might not want to get involved in that argument, but can you give me a little bit of your personal opinion on the Bundy case in Bunkerville and Oregon?
Yes, I'll be happy to give you my opinion on all that.
And let me tell you,
yeah.
Clark yesterday did a show with Clive.
Joel Hansen.
Yeah, Joe
Clive,
Hansen, I know him. Yes,
Clive Bundy's lawyer.
lawyer. Yeah,
And
I met Clive at the Las Vegas National golf course when he spoke there, and he joined the Independent American Party at that time. And that's just like a block from my house. I know Clive
Excuse me,
personally.
Jerry, either sit down or go there because you're interrupting the camera. You're fixing your pants in front of the camera, please.
Yeah. So but I want to get back to the first Constitution that we had was called the Articles of Confederation. And Article 9 of that first Constitution we had said that none of the territory of any of the states may be used for the public benefit of the U.S. government. This led to the second Constitution, which came about in 1791, which says in Article 4, Section 3, the Equal Footing Clause, that every state brought in the West included, will enter in with control of all of their public lands, just like the original 13 states did. There are two important Supreme Court cases on this. 1845, the Pollard versus Hagan case said that Alabama had right to all the public lands. The state of the United States government tried to ignore that Supreme Court ruling. When they brought Nevada in, they tried to get us to waive our rights in the preamble of the state constitution. However, the important case of Cole versus Smith at the U.S. Supreme Court in 1911 said that you cannot waive your rights. The state cannot waive its rights to actual ownership of the public lands. The public lands are only being managed. They're not supposed to be owned. And the federal government is not supposed to get any benefit from that, just like I told you about the original Article 9 thing. So the key here is that the state needs to step up to the plate and be more aggressive. Tennessee just recently passed a state law. They've passed it around to the other 49 states, and they are demanding that the U.S. government release all public lands in those western states so that these states like Nevada and Oregon are not second-class states. The states need to be controlling this land for the benefit of the people in their states, all right? People forget the federal government is not a party to the Constitution. They are the states, in their individual sovereign character, are the parties to the Constitution, which created a federal government, which is simply their delegated agent for limited purposes. And so this is one of the big issues here of the federal government is overstepping its bounds in so many different areas, but the public lands issue is a very big one.
The natural course of things is that when you're in power and you're in the federal government and you have that thing called the pesky little Constitution, your duty is to try to limit it and limit it and limit it and get more and more and more power. Because that's the natural way when you're dealing with humans that things are done. And we have to stop that because that's like a cancer.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't get better the next day.
It gets
gets
worse.
worse.
It gets
So
worse.
we have to stop this slow erosion of our constitutional rights. And I think with having Cliven Bundy in jail, the government is afraid to let him out, because if they do, they've got an agenda. I think EPA has a lot to do with it, which is a sneaky little agenda to get all the land away from the people, so you can't hunt, you can't fish, you can't have water rights, you can't have, because all the tree huggers, that's what they're after.
Right.
And there's agendas here.
There's
Now,
agendas here.
why is Bundy in jail? What crime has he committed?
He's in jail because he represents something the federal government's very afraid of.
Is that a crime?
No, he's not in there for any crime that he's done. They won't show that he owes $1 million in grazing fees. As he's always said, I'm willing to pay the taxes to the county and state, but I don't recognize the federal government owning this land. They don't.
That's an
Okay?
issue that needs to go to Congress.
Exactly, and this is why Tennessee has said in their bill that they passed, and they passed it around, wanting the other states to pass it. They said that it's supposed to be just like it was originally was. 95% goes to paying down the federal debt, and the other 5% goes to the state at the time of the sale. And then the states own that land, and they're able to tax that land for the benefit of the people of the state.
Okay, and what
okay?
was the crime that he committed in Oregon? Because they arrested him before he put foot on
He
it.
was supposed to wait till first class got off the plane,
Right.
and
yeah.
he got ahead of the lead person in
Yeah.
first class.
Yeah.
So he got off the plane in illegal order.
Oh, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Well, that's similar because what the judge is doing, they can't let him out of jail because he may disobey an order that may be issued in the future. So it's the same thing. Getting off the plane early is the same premonition. Well, he may get
Well,
off the plane
it's the
early,
same
or
thing.
he may violate
Well, you
because
see-
they're struggling because he hasn't done anything wrong. So they
Yeah.
come up with this premonition.
Yeah. Same
You-
thing
you
that
see,
Doc
the-
Smith
the
did
thing
with
about
my
it-
friend's son.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, his crime was that the people from the District of Criminals, D.C., Washington, D.C., were trying to rustle his cattle. And he wasn't supposed to stop the cattle rustling, you see? And so the federal government was trying to cattle rustle. And so, this is just basically
I always go by the premise you have
Yeah.
to see who started the fight.
who started the
What
fight.
I understand
Yeah.
is Cliven Bundy was sitting on his tractor one day up there on his
Yeah.
ranch, and here come federal agents with guns.
Yeah.
Corralled his cattle away from him, and that's what started this mess.
That's what started
Now,
it.
a lot of people showed up to
Yeah.
support Mr. Bundy on that. He didn't ask them to come, they just showed up.
Right.
He didn't incite a riot, he didn't incite to go against the government. They showed up, and that kind of quelled the problem there and then, because the government had to back off or start shooting people. So they backed off. Now, 2 years later, they do something in Oregon that doesn't make too much sense to me. Two guys got out of jail. They did their time for starting a backfire, which is what the BLM does all the time. It's part of managing land. And so anyway, the new guy didn't think that they spent enough time in jail, so he gives them a 5-year sentence after they were already out. So that's BS. That's more overstepping. And then Cliven Bundy shows up, and they go, uh-oh, this thing's getting out of hand again. We better get these people thrown in jail and keep them there to quell this next thing, so we don't have another issue like we had in Bunkerville that we couldn't win. So now you have the judges who works for the government is going to do whatever they say to do, overstepping their bounds, trying to usurp our rights, and do this. My thing that I explained to Mr. Hansen the other day is, and maybe you as running for your position, if you get elected, I hope it doesn't take that long to get Mr. Bundy out of jail. But my remedy is that this is the United States of America. This was founded for we the people. We the people are in charge.
That's
That
correct.
judge is not in charge. The jail is not in charge. We are the people. As the people, Mr. Bundy's not been charged with a crime that makes any sense.
That makes
You can't
sense.
charge someone with a crime that they may do in the future
Right.
if the judge does something in the future. If you
Clark,
can't do that.
I'm sorry,
So-
but wake up call is at 1:00. So don't wake up now.
Oh, okay,
That's just,
okay,
you're
all right,
dreaming.
okay.
That doesn't
So,
happen
well,
in my country.
Well,
No, I
it
totally
can
agree
happen.
with
You can
what
get
you're
20
saying there.
people
Yeah,
together.
yeah.
You can go to the jail,
Yeah.
and you can say, "Release Mr. Bundy to us, we the people." Take him home, put him there.
I
that's
totally
it.
agree here. You've got too many of these federal judges that are going and say the law is what I say it is, as opposed to
Tell me
strict
about it.
interpretation instead of strict interpretation of original intent.
I have it on the record where a judge told me in a case that any ruling I make in this court is the rule of law.
Yeah. And that's the problem that we've got right now with this case, where we have a bankruptcy trustee who's operating in a fictitious name, and the state attorney general people that I've talked to with, and they go, look, NRS 602.020 says that if you want to operate in a fictitious name, you've got to file a fictitious name certificate with the state each year. And she has not for 20 some odd years. They do this. They have the IRS agents, they have different people, they work under fictitious names. And I expose this, and they don't like it, okay? So they're trying to ignore it, and they're going, well, federal law trumps. I said, what federal law allows you to work under fictitious names and try to fool the people? You know, I could get into a
Federal
lot
law
more on
only
this.
trumps something if there is a law
Right.
and if it's a conflict.
If there's a conflict, right?
Right. If there's no conflict
Yeah.
and there's no law, it's state law.
State
rules.
law. Well, here's my contention in all of this,
And
as I showed in the
you know what is
just a
cynical
second.
about this? Hold on a
Okay.
minute. You know
All
what
right.
is cynical about this? Then you cannot get a business license if you don't have a fictitious name.
Yeah,
That's what it is.
but yeah, along this line though.
They want the $20. That's all
Yeah.
they want.
But along this line here is that the fact that you've got in the bankruptcy rules itself, it will specifically say that the federal government will look to the state law under this particular rule or under this particular rule. And I point that out, and others point this out, and they just say, well, I'm going to interpret it a different way. It's very clear. When the rule says there on the federal rules of bankruptcy procedures that you look to the state law in this particular issue, and the state law says you may not commence or maintain any legal proceeding in a fictitious name. You have to know the real parties. Okay, so if a person is operating under a fake name, and then she tries to predict, you can't sue me because that's not my real name. This has got to stop, folks. This has got to stop.
Yeah, well,
We need to know who the real parties are.
the $20 that you pay to the county clerk, it give you the right to use a fictitious name.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
what it
to
is.
use it's for business purposes. If you
Yeah.
want to have a professional name, but that's not your legal surname, then you're letting the world know, we're publishing it. Okay, it's so and so operating under, this particular name for whatever small business that you have.
Yeah,
That's your professional name.
And you know what? It's funny. Let me tell you. This is a few years back when the late Jerry Paragiri used to be in charge of that department. I opened a business called Southwest Advertisements. Okay. About 6 months, 8 months later, I don't know how long later, I got a letter from an attorney saying you cannot use that name because my client owned that name.
Right.
So I go to the county clerk and I said, Jerry, look at this. I got this letter. Why is this happening? And she said, well, we don't have time to check if anybody else have that name or not. We just give you the name and it's up to you to do the research. I said, but what about my $20? She said, I don't have anything to do with that. That's what it was. You know, and that's the attitude that the government always, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like this BS about you need to have a state license in order to open a mama and papa operation business. You know, why? What is the law? Well, show me the law. Nobody in the business license know what law is it. It is a confabulation between the state and the license. And now with Sandoval's new taxing, instead of 200 a year, it's 600 a year. You know,
that's one of my contentions is that it's driving these businesses. It's killing our local economy. You want to diversify the economy, you can't be raising the business licenses to where people can't maintain their businesses or start new businesses. It's just,
you know. And then you ask anybody, even city councilmen, or I don't know if the county is doing it now, because one time the county was not asking for a state license. But, you know, Ross Miller, the son of the former governor, Bob Miller, he's very persuaded, you know, and it might be something that it happened now. But when I was in the county over there on Flamingo Road, I didn't need a business license from the state. And now that I'm going to get a business license, I got to pay $600 a year, regardless of what money I make or not make.
Yeah.
That's ripping off the people.
Well, no, it's driving away jobs and driving away businesses. Is what it's doing.
So, anyway, we need to find out a little bit more about who we're going to elect. We're going to have, you know, we cannot elect a person to Congress just because she looks pretty and she got blonde hair, and otherwise, what she knows, you know. And we need to get people that are going to work for us. Talk is cheap, my friend.
Right.
Talk is cheap. And talking like that on election time, it is very common and very normal in our political world.
You would be passing legislation?
Yes.
Okay. Do the courts have to follow the statutes of this country?
They're supposed to. Yeah.
No, do they have to?
Well, and this is the whole thing. The courts. I mean, we've got a problem in the legislature, in my opinion, when you have people passing unconstitutional, like SB 303, which violates a U.S. treaty. You know, for example, I gave that example. There's bad legislation, there's good legislation, and then there's totally unconstitutional legislation, which needs to be. And there's you know, SB 303 has been passed, and they're still passing out these illegal driver's licenses. You know, and when I talk to Metro and stuff, you know, it's just a major problem.
It's out of
Final arbitrator there would be the Supreme
It's out of
Court.
their hands.
If it's an unconstitutional law, would they be the final arbitrator to straighten
Well,
that out?
you've got to have somebody that's been harmed by the law. Say, let's say, for example, that somebody was in an accident. I think.
Okay.
That, you know, I'm talking about if you're not getting a bill put in there to repeal it. If I get in there, I'm going to be going through there and issuing bills to repeal a lot of unconstitutional
So
legislation.
you don't need a complainant or whatever.
I
you
don't
wanna
need a
call it.
complaint. I can put in a bill to repeal this.
Why can't that be done now?
It
Because no
should
one's
be.
doing it, right?
It should be,
How
because
many people will follow you?
well, we'll see. I mean, that could be thing. Just because I offer the bill doesn't mean that it'll get supported. You know,
Right. This
and
is the
big
season.
problem. This is the big problem is special interest groups. You know, they
Right.
have
I
their-
think we have to go back to the rule of law.
Yes.
Everybody's talking about
Yeah.
it. Trump's running on. Everybody's sick and tired of it, and it's time to go back to the rule of law and the Constitution.
Everybody's sick
So a
about
good
it, but nobody wanna
platform-
do nothing
A
about
good
it.
platform, in my opinion, would be the problem is that judges rule according to I am the law. I do it. You know, well they don't. The legislature. Now, if a judge rules contrary to a statute, and let's say it's a very cut and dry, black and white, there's no controversy. This is the statute, okay? And a judge rules against that, the legislature, legal department, or whatever, should say, wait a minute. And they should have check and balance to go to that judiciary and say, that don't count because that's a void order,
Right.
period.
Yeah.
And that's the legislature. The legislature, one of my things is, a legislator told me, well, I can't do anything about that because the judge that did that, his son went to school with my son. So, wait a minute, we have to go back to the rule of law, and that takes the family and all the connections out. What is the law? That's it. That's the ruling until they change the law.
This has been a continuing problem. I mean, we talked about, the founding fathers talked about the problem. The people that were anti-federalist, like Patrick Henry and George Mason and so forth, were saying, you know, when you create these additional levels and you have these judges that are knowing that what they're doing, ruling, is illegal, but they go, you know what, I'm being paid money or something under the table, so that let them try to overturn it on the appeals court, or let them try take it all the way to the Supreme Court. And so it's just like Blackstone say, you got a guy who the original case is about maybe a sheep or a cow or an ox or whatever, and by the time it gets there 10 years later, it's been like the cost of an entire herd. And he says, this is the problem. You have oligarchs, the aristocracy basically, because they've got so much money, like this Missouri billionaire hedge fund guy, that he just, you know, keeps coming after you, coming after you, coming after you, until he gets what he wants.
What do you want to say, Jerry? You pulling your hand out like you're in a kindergarten class. Go ahead, say it.
Read Capital in the 21st Century by the Frenchman, by the way, that made the bestseller list for 15 weeks in a row the first time it came out. And in that Capital in the 21st Century, Thomas Piketty, he wrote this in French and I translated it.
Go ahead, because we only got 2 minutes left.
Okay, well, just read it then. If
Okay.
you don't want to hear a quick summary, fine.
Well, 2 minutes. Can you do it in 2 minutes?
I can do it in 1 minute.
Okay, go ahead, do it.
Talk about it.
Well, you've read it.
Yeah, I've read it.
Yeah, and my other colleague, Dr. Give me a 30-second
Go ahead.
wrap up. Fine.
Go ahead.
Dr. Richard McFall has also read this book, and it points out the sound reasoning why we need no lobby money and we have to reject Citizens United. Correct, Doctor?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing people on both sides of the fund, that the amount of money, and fortunately we had somebody like Trump that could overcome the $148 million that the Bush PACs brought out, and you see, you know, $100 million with the Cruz PACs and everything. So, but you know, if it wasn't somebody like Trump, they couldn't overcome all of this massive amounts of money. Okay?
No lobby money.
They're trying to control who runs on both sides. They wanted a Bush or a Clinton, okay? And then they win either way. And this is the problem with Elliott. He's accepted maybe $350,000 approximately, all from special interest. And they expect him to vote certain ways when he gets up there in the legislature.
Absolutely.
Okay? And that's why I've got Jerry, who's president of Democrats for Stan Vaughn, who's a Republican, because he knows I am going to be like Trump in this particular respect, in that I'm not going to be controlled by the special interest. All right?
And rule of law, running
Rule
that
of
platform.
law. And
We have to
yeah.
go black and white. If there's a law in the legislature that's on the books, you don't care if it's a good law or a bad law, it's on the books. So you either need to repeal that, change it, do whatever, but there's a process to go.
Yeah.
If the law's on the book, a judge cannot rule contrary to that law, or what he did is void. Now that means that you, as the complainant or the plaintiff or whatever that got ruled against with a void order, you don't have to have the burden to spend 6 years trying to get this in void ruling overturned. It is void.
Right, and
And-
and you're absolutely right on this, because this is a big problem, that it's basically a legal system that's set up for whoever has the most money.
Exactly. When
and
you
can-
run out of money, then the situation's over.
then, you know, well, I'm sorry, you lose on a default judgment, all right?
Right.
Well,
And,
whose fault is that? We, the people.
Yeah.
That we become prostitutes.
My case,
If you got
$1.5
money, we help
million
you.
out of state trust. Real property held out of state. Okay? I made a complaint in this state because my sister was stealing money from a money trust, a separate trust, a money trust. She was stealing money. I needed access to the bank account.
Right.
Okay, I won. I got access to the bank account. She was stealing money. Okay, she didn't have a dime to her name. Her lawyer puts in a bill for $600,000 to represent her in this little simple matter. Okay, the judge dictates that the home in another state be sold to pay her lawyer who lost the case. That is a void order by the Constitution of the United States and by the Constitution of Nevada and by a Supreme Court decision. Okay,
You know, before
3 years.
We don't
3
have
years.
any more time.
Okay,
We're done. I wanted to remind everybody that in March 8th, Judge Janice Marshall is going to be in this show. Listen to her because she's a good judge and she had a lot of people from the establishment running against her now when they have no business running against her. Judge Janice Marshall is going to be here on Friday, April 8th. I'm sorry, not March, April 8th. Thank you for listening, folks. My name is Rolando Larraz, and I stand behind every single word they have been saying in this show. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I was exactly what he said. I tried to sue the RJ, and they said,